Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
Hey, everybody, what's going on? This is your man, Big B, Brien Hanley, and welcome back to the Big 12 Insiders. Hope everybody had a good holiday weekend. Look, it's always feel like it's weird when you're talking about Memorial Day and you say Happy Memorial Day, but we're really celebrating, fallen soldiers, and I'm not sure that's a real happy day, but anytime that we get to celebrate soldiers who fought and gave their life for this country, we should do that. Anytime we get the opportunity to do that. So for me, it was a good Memorial Day, especially spending it with family. So family and friends. But let's move on. Look, I don't want to beat around the bush. This BYU, Jake Retzlaff, this whole situation is absolutely ugly. And that's what we're going to talk about today, ladies and gentlemen. It is ugly. We're going to break down, parts of it. There's no winners in this thing. What happened, the honor code, all of that stuff. And we're going to talk about it. And then we're going to find out, is there a resolution? At least in my eyes, can there be a resolution to this whole thing? So make sure you guys stick around for all of it, because it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one. I appreciate all your all support. As always, again, remember, like, follow, subscribe, dive into the comments section like you guys always do. And remember to hit that notification bell so you know exactly when Big 12 Insiders content comes out. So first off, let's just get into it. What happened? Well, I think that's kind of the thing. Nobody really knows what happened. I think there's too many people online that try to say, well, she's lying. Well, he did it and all this stuff. Nobody really knows what happened except for those two individuals. So that's where the big problem with this comes along. Now, I'm not going to talk about and get into the weeds of the details because I'm not a lawyer. I don't want to be a lawyer. I'm not trying to be a reporter. And look, we're just talking here, and so to try to get into the gory details of what happened or what police knew or the school knew, and did they sweep it under the rug? Did they not sweep it under the rug? I think if you're trying to do that, you're trying to find fault on one side or another. And me, I'm not trying to find fault. I'll tell you that right now. That's not what this is about, trying to find out who's wrong, who's right. There'll be a time for that. But as of right now, we don't know. And I think you have to kind of go into this as you don't know what happened. Let things play out. It's okay to let some things play out. Everybody doesn't have to be, the online lawyer, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. Now, you can totally disagree, and I wouldn't be mad at you. And sorry, I keep rubbing my eye. I think I washed my face. I think I got my dog hair in my eye. But it is what it is. So it's a civil suit, not a criminal case. Right there, that piques the interest of people because, well, hold on a second. Why isn't it a criminal case? Well, then there's I don't know if it's not really speculation. She did go to the police. That's the thing. She went to the police, got rape kit supposedly, went to the police, and again, whether they did anything or not, I don't know what they said. I know that he said, she said, but it isn't a criminal case. That part we know is for a fact. So now it's a civil case. And that, again, brings the eyes up and raises the eyebrows of a lot of people. And they say, well, why are you just going after money? And it happened 2 years ago. Why didn't you do this last year? Why didn't you do it at the time? Again, I don't want to try to get into the he said, she said, or why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? I've never been, I haven't ever allegedly accused somebody of sexual assault. So I don't know what their mindset is. I don't know what their mind frame is. I haven't been the victim of a sexual assault or an alleged sexual assault. So for me to sit here and try to speak on that, and I'll be quite frank, for anybody else to speak on how somebody should feel or what they should do. You guys know me. I'm pretty honest. I think you're lame as hell when you try to do that. Whether it happened or not is a different conversation. But if it did, or this is what they're claiming happened, for you to speculate and talk about what they should do, you haven't been in that situation. So try not to do that. I know it's hard. I know I give my opinions too. But just try to put yourself in that situation and don't judge, which comes back to me, let things play out. Because I'm not going to rush to judgment. It's one of the reasons why I waited so long to even talk about this, because I thought, okay, maybe some other facts, some other things may come out. It doesn't appear that that's the case after a week. So, okay, let's get into it and let's talk about it. There'll be some other things that come out here, and we'll get it, and it'll all get figured out. But the one thing that I do know, there are no winners in this situation. Zero winners. Now, you might say, well, come on, Big B, there can be a winner in this. To me, I don't think there is. And here's the reason why. First off, if he did what she claimed, if he did it, then he deserves all the ridicule that he's already received. And he deserves all the ridicule that's going to come his way for the rest of his life. You heard what I said. The rest of his life, because yes, people can change. Yes, time goes on and they can be sorry, but you still did it. There's consequences to our actions, ladies and gentlemen. There's consequences, whether they're good consequences or bad consequences. There are consequences for every single thing we do. And I don't think enough people learn that. Look, I'm not trying to lecture you on life, because that's not me. But there are consequences and your consequence, if you did something like this, you got to pay for that the rest of your life. Period. End of story. There is no, well, we forgot that you ever did that. No. So if he did it, he deserves everything that comes with that. I'm sorry. That's just the way I feel. Now, here's the plot twist, I guess you could say. If the sex was actually consensual, that's tough to prove, whether, one way or another. So that's why a lot of people are like, well, if it's not a criminal case, why is it civil? Why are you only going after money? Again, I don't want to get into what she's doing or her reasoning. That's not for me to say. I have my own ideas and thoughts, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're just here to talk about what BYU is going to do. But I have to give some context and some background before I can get into what BYU is going to do. But that's why I say there's no winners in this thing. So, but, bringing up the honor code into play, I mean, we'll come back to that. We'll come back to the honor code. Let's start there. Now, if he's truly innocent and he didn't do what she claims that he did, like he didn't have sex with her, I mean, there's going to be, first of all, for him to be able to prove that, it's going to be pretty open and shut. Hey, I didn't do it. I wasn't in town. I wasn't in the city. I wasn't anywhere around, and I've got my phone. You can check my phone and see where I was, blah, blah, blah. Somebody saw me. I was here. I was there. If it's all completely made up, and again, I'm not passing judgment, but we're lying if we're saying that these things haven't been made up in the past, because they have. If he can prove that he didn't even do anything, then to me, it's not the bigger crime, but it's just a bigger crime. If he can prove that he did. And why are we going to trial? That would be my first thing. Hey, I wasn't even around. We're not going to trial. This is what happened. And I'd be playing that out into the media all that I could. I wasn't even in the city. I wasn't there. I didn't do it. Yeah, I was here when she's saying all this happened. That's tough. That's tough. But like I said, we've seen where it's been made up before, and it's ruined kids. It's ruined their life. But we've also seen where it's actually happened, and it's ruined that person's life. So it's tricky, man. It's tricky, this whole situation. Now, let's talk about the honor code for a minute. And again, I'm not as familiar with the honor code. I'll be quite frank. I just read it online. I pulled it up and read what I saw. And it's pretty specific. I mean, it's not vague. It's not, there's a lot of things that you can say are vague in this. No, it's not. It's pretty specific, and BYU has a history of it. The latest one that I can remember, the one that brought, super attention to me was in 2011, the Brandon Davies. BYU basketball team is rolling. They are I think they were 27-2. They were number 3 in the country. Remember, Jimmy Fredette was on that basketball team, and they are literally rolling. All of a sudden, you come out with a report. Davies gets kicked off the team, suspended from school, and you're like, what did he do? And there was kind of like a day of like, why are you kicking this guy off? There's no criminal report. Like, what happened? All of a sudden, it comes out, honor code violation. Admitted to having sex with his girlfriend, which to me at the time was weird because somebody would have had to have told on him. But it is what it is. Doesn't matter how they found out. They found out. And BYU acted swiftly and boldly. You're off the team. You can stay in school, but you are immediately off the team. And it was, we'll figure out if you can stay in school. I shouldn't say they just, you can stay. No, you're off the team, and we'll figure the rest of this out. But you are no longer welcome on this basketball team. And that was it. There was no big, long discussions because I've talked to several people with BYU ties and asked them this very question. What's the process? Is there a big, long, drawn-out process? What happens here? They said they have a meeting. They find out whether you did it or not. If you did, you're out. It's like there's no back and forth. There's no, no, you're out. Now, here's the thing about Brandon Davies. He was actually able to come back to BYU. But I talked to you earlier about consequences. His consequence was you're suspended for the rest of the season. That's it. So BYU, there's a precedent set for this. And the honor code is I could read the part about it. It says live a chaste life, chaste and virtuous life, including abstaining from any sexual relations outside of marriage between a man and a woman. That's why the whole part about if he had consensual sex with her, that doesn't get him off the hook in the eyes of BYU. And that's where the big issue, or I should say, the problem comes in when you start talking about football, because clearly the sexual assault case is bigger than football. It much bigger than a football team, any of that. But if he's cleared of that, and that's an if, does he still get to stay at BYU? Does he still get to participate? Because look, I'm not super familiar with BYU. You know me, I do my research the best that I can. But from the outside looking in, BYU doesn't appear to me as a school that likes to bend the rules for people. It doesn't appear. Now, I'm sure there's going to be some people that come out in the comments, they'll bend the rules all the time. They're not as high and mighty as what they say. And maybe that's true. And you can tell me that I'm wrong. Fine. But again, from the outside looking in, it doesn't appear that BYU is willing to bend on things in order for athletic competition. It just doesn't appear to be that. Now, are they going to be? BYU is supposed to have a good football team. This is way too late to try to go get you another quarterback. If this happened in January, BYU could say, okay, we're going to go in the transfer portal. We're going to go get somebody. We'll figure this out. Well, I'm sorry, it's the end of May. That's not happening. Okay? So they're going to have to dance with whoever's there. Okay? So is BYU going to bend? Again, I don't think they are. In which my question is, is his career over? I don't think it is. I don't think it has to be. Just like I mentioned about Brandon Davies, he was able to come back to the team. Now, the difference was it was with his girlfriend. He wasn't being accused of sexual assault. That's a huge difference. If BYU said, you know what, we don't even want to deal with this anymore, and just, we're done with you, move on. That's a tricky situation because I mentioned this before. If he really didn't do it and he just had sex with her, there is precedence for people coming back to the university. It's not just basketball players, people being suspended, kicked out, and brought back. And if he didn't do it, you're saying, well, we're just done with him altogether. Well, why would you be? Make him suffer the consequences, and then you can bring him back. He's only a junior. He could come back next year. Or does BYU say, we just don't want to fool with it at all? You put yourself in that situation. We're sorry, but we got to move on. It's not worth our reputation even dealing with. I wouldn't be mad at either comment or comment. I wouldn't be mad at either situation, whichever choice they chose to make. I wouldn't be upset. One, he faced the consequences. He didn't do it. And again, this is assuming that he is innocent, which is an assumption just for this particular segment of what I'm talking about. I'm not assuming that he's innocent. So I don't want you to think that I'm telling you that, oh, he didn't do it. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just talking about for this particular segment of this content is that, okay, if he didn't do it, because I think if he did, it's an easy answer. I mean, I don't think that needs to even be discussed. If he did it, then he's out, and that's it. BYU will never take him back. You'll be hard-pressed to find anybody that takes him back. I'm not going to say there's no school that won't, but you'd be hard-pressed to find anything like that. He's out. It's over. Move on. And that's it. Or if he didn't do it and he only had sex with her and he can prove that, as much as it can be proved, by the way, again, not a criminal case, then does BYU say, here's your consequences, you're out for the year, we'll bring you back next year? Or do they just say, no, you soiled our name, we don't want anything to do with you, good luck, see you later, get out? Again, I wouldn't fault BYU either way. Either way, I wouldn't fault them. But the problem, it's just they can't do nothing. The only way they can do nothing is if he can prove that he didn't even have sex with her. If he can prove that, then yes, BYU can say they don't have to do anything and move on. But unless that, which I don't believe that's going to be the case. I mean, again, I've done my best not to dip into the legal aspects or whatever of any of this, but I just don't believe that that's something that is going to, because if it were me, this is how I always talk about stuff when it comes up to stuff like this. If it were me and I was being accused of this and I knew for a 100% fact that I didn't do it, that I didn't even have sex with him, every time I thought about it, I would be screaming to a reporter in a camera's face. Every single time. She's lying. I didn't do this. I didn't even have sex with her. This is where I was. I can prove it. That's not what's going on right now. I mean, that isn't what's going on. So I think that ship has probably sailed as far as did he have sex with her. Now, the part that some people want to talk about, and I'll dive into this a little bit. I'll I'll put my head into the lion's mouth, is that should the honor code even be around? Who the hell am I to say that it shouldn't be? You know, people look at it like it's college. College kids, they have sex. They're not living the most virtuous life. They're trying to figure out themselves. Life is about experiences. Well, come on, Big B. Sex has to be part of your college experience. It doesn't have to be, but it is for a lot of people. And who the hell am I to tell somebody how to live virtuously? That is not my place in life. Not even the slightest bit. Regardless of what I did, what I believe, I'm not God, so I don't try to play God. So should it even be around? If BYU thinks it should be around, it should be. But the thing that I do like about BYU is they have been consistent. There is no, like I mentioned earlier, there is no, well, we're going to bend the rules for this guy and for that girl, and they don't do that. If you break this honor code, there's a price to pay. The difference this time between the Davies situation in 2011 is that it was his girlfriend, and it was consensual. And however they found out, they still they cost themselves an opportunity to go to the Final Four. Now, whether they would have made it or not, I don't know. But I know they were he was a good player on a 27-2 team at the time. So they cost themselves an opportunity to go to the Final Four to stand up for what they believe in. I don't think BYU is going to do anything differently in this case, people. I really don't. I don't think they're going to do anything different because, again, I know there'll be people in the comments that are going to beat BYU up and tell me that they're not as virtuous as what they say, and that's fine. But to me, from the out, again, I am an outsider looking in. Everything that I have seen tells me that BYU is not going to bend on this. If there's something out there that says that they will, please get in the comments section and let me know. If there's instances, where they have bent the rules, please get in the comments and let me know, because I tried to find it. I tried for a week. I couldn't find anything. Now, granted, I'm not a reporter. I don't act like a reporter. I don't even want to be a reporter. But my Google search skills are pretty good. You know, my research skills are pretty good. And I didn't find a case where they bent at all when it came to something like this. But make no mistake, people. They've got to, first of all, let it play out. And the problem that letting it play out, well, I say the problem, the football season is right around the corner. This isn't going to be over before that. You know, a criminal case, you can get a speedy trial if you want. In a civil case, you can't. So now it's in BYU's hands on what they do. It's like, okay, here's where we are. The ball is in your court. What are you going to do? It's tough, man. It's tough because, again, the accusations are horrendous. I mean, if you've read any of the report, you can, I'm not going to go into those details, but if you go into the details, it is horrendous what is being accused here. Absolutely horrendous. So there's that. There's also the possibility that this could all be made up and that it was consensual. And we've seen this play out several different times here recently where ladies have been lying about what happened, and then there's proof to show that they were lying. And to me, again, it's not as bad as the actual act if that were to happen, but it's close. It's close because now you're ruining lives over a lie, something that didn't happen. And what makes it worse is that the next person won't be believed that it really does happen to. That's the problem, is that when you make up something like this so egregious, and then the next person that it really does happen to, you get speculation all over the place, which it shouldn't be that. But unfortunately, it is because of reality. And that's what sucks. But BYU's in a pickle. They are in a pickle. Let's not make any mistake about that. They have a huge decision to make. They're going to get criticized no matter what decision that they make. But there's a right and there's a wrong. And look, the accusation is the accusation. And again, unless he can prove that he never had sex, this is how I'll end this thing. Unless he can prove that, then he can't play football for them this year because the honor code means something to BYU. Unless they tell us that it doesn't. But they haven't shown that, And if the honor code doesn't mean anything, then just get rid of it altogether. But they're not going to do that because I believe it does mean something to them, and it should. If that's what they believe, good for them. Good for them. But the bottom line is I don't think Jake Retzlaff plays this year. Just for that reason. Doesn't mean his career is over. I'm not saying that. Doesn't mean that BYU will never accept him back. Not saying that. But for this coming football season, I don't think he plays. I think BYU stands up and says, sorry, we have an honor code. You broke it. And here's the thing. Their honor code goes beyond campus. So if you try to say, well, it didn't happen on campus, BYU doesn't care. It can happen anywhere. If you're a student, this is what you abide by. You can be on the moon. Doesn't matter. These are the rules that you abide by. That's it. So it's tough. It's a weird situation. Weird's probably not the right word. It's an unfortunate situation. That's the better word. But I don't think he plays this year. I think that's the way this ends. Does he come back? We'll see. It's all going to end up playing out, and we'll find out more as we do, as this thing unfolds. So appreciate you all being here, man. Thank you guys again, as always. Remember, dive in that comment section. Let me know what you think. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure that you do subscribe to the channel. Trying to get to at least 4,000 subscribers before the football season starts. So we're starting to get close. We appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.